Creativity and Rejuvenation live workshop. I'm very excited about tonight because liminal dreaming is something that I have very much been exploring in my own practice for the past few months, and even some of the techniques that we're going to talk about this evening, like yoga nidra, I have been exploring for the past few years, and it even led me to get my yoga nidra teacher certification. So if you are interested in learning about hypnagogia and liminal dreaming and hypnopompia and meditation and all of that good stuff, then you are in the right place. Make sure that you go ahead and grab your pens and papers because you're definitely going to want to take notes. As always, for my live workshops, I am going to be logging in on my own computer, so give me just a moment. I have a number of resources that I'm going to share with you today. I have some books that I am going to read from to give you some additional information. So you're definitely going to want to go ahead and take notes, okay? But in the meantime, in between time, let's go ahead and get it started with housekeeping. Housekeeping item number one, as always, is going to be interaction. As I'm going through the content and the information, please feel free to interact with me. If you have any questions, comments, experiences, go ahead and drop those in the comment section below. Even if you're not watching this live and you're watching it on the replay, if you have questions about anything, go ahead and drop your questions in the comment section and I will definitely answer those for you. Second housekeeping item is going to be sharing is caring. Just like you're trying to grow, I'm trying to grow. If you're watching this video now, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and let me know that you appreciate what I do. But if you know someone who is interested in liminal dreaming or dream work or something like that, please go ahead and share this video with them. Don't be a hater. Do not be stingy with this information. We are here to spread the love to everyone. So go ahead and share this video with a friend, family member, loved one. I do have some resources for you as always. The first is going to be my free fall winter self-care ideas list. It's really a guide. It has a number of, sorry, I was like, why won't it let me type in the chat? It has a number of self-care ideas organized by stressor type. So say you're stressed emotionally, then you can go to the emotional section and look up all of the activities that it has there for you, and whatever one seems interesting to you, then you can go ahead and engage with that one. It also has a section on a mental emotional journaling exercise that I created for you. You can use it every evening in order to de-stress and decompress and do some self-reflection from your day. And in the back, it has an additional resources section full of links to guided meditations, additional journaling activities, and all types of self-care practices, all for the free $99. So go ahead and grab that, okay? I know a lot of people are prioritizing their self-care and their well-being, and that's probably why you're here on Higher Alignment. So you might as well go ahead and grab a free guide, a goodie for you. The next one that I'm putting in the chat is going to be the Dreamwork workbook. If you are interested in diving deeper into the practices that we're talking about this evening, as well as that I have been talking about over the past few months as I'm going through my 2023 Dreamwork and Lucid Dreaming for Self-Care and Personal Development series, then you might want to go ahead and grab this workbook bundle. Right now it's $22.22, so that's cheaper than lunch, y'all. You're going to get so much information. It actually comes with 2 workbooks. Both of them are fillable. The first one is called Intro to Dreamwork, and it has more than 30 pages of content, activities, exercises, information on how to remember your dreams, how to become lucid, how to liminal dream. It teaches you basically everything that you need to know in order to jumpstart your own dream work practice. The second book, I'm going to sneeze in a second. In the second workbook, it actually teaches you to use your dreams for self-care and personal development. So how to ask questions to your dreams, how to receive answers from your dreams, tips on dream interpretation, how to incubate dreams, all types of good stuff like that. So between both of those workbooks, you're going to be pretty much set. So once again, we're talking about dream work this evening. So if you want to dive in deeper with that, then go ahead and check that workbook out. And then the last resource that I have for you is Manifest 2024. That is going to be the next virtual workshop that I'm going to be doing on Saturday, 30th. December 30th, and I am going to be helping you create your 2024 plan. I know a lot of people are interested in vision boards, and I used to do a lot of vision boards, and I don't have anything against the vision boards, but I just feel like they are not, for me, they're not top quality as far as activities that are going to absolutely get you to the finish line and make sure that when you're at the finish line that you actually accomplish what you said you want to accomplish at the beginning of the year. So that's what I'm going to be helping you do in the Manifest 2024 virtual workshop. We're going to go through the 7 areas of life. We're going to do a lot of self-exploration in order for you to, one, come up with meaningful goals for yourself for the year. 2, to think about your major and minor manifestations, considering any other additional resources like classes or workshops or interests or passions that you want to explore. And not only are we going to generate all of those ideas, but we're actually going to create a structure that works just for you. I'm going to introduce different types of structures for different types of minds, different types of people, and you're going to pick which one you want. And then I'm going to help you create this framework for your year that will allow you to arrive at December 2024 and look back at January and tell yourself like, dang, I really did accomplish nearly everything, if not everything that I said that I wanted to accomplish for the year. So that's the difference, and that's what I'm going to be helping you do. So if you are interested in joining that workshop, I just put the link down there for you, and I will include all of that information in the description box below. Let's see. Let me just make sure I don't have anything else for you. I don't think I do. If you don't know who I am, allow me to briefly introduce myself. My name is Aaron. I am a certified metaphysical life coach, mindfulness and meditation practitioner, and mindset guru. I'm here to give you the tips, tools, and techniques that you can use in order to create a powerful shift and transformation in your life. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to you about liminal dreaming. And we're going to talk about yoga nidra. We're going to talk about meditation and a lot of these practices that are, I would say, additional supplementary practices for dream work. So that's why I'm including it in this workshop series. But I wanted to talk about and present to you information outside of how to interpret your dreams or how to become lucid in your dreams. And I know a lot of people in my audience on Instagram have actually been hounding me to do this workshop on liminal dreaming. So I wanted to bring this information to you. And we have a lot of information and activities and things to go through. So make sure once again that you are taking notes. You have your pens, your papers, notebooks, tablets, recording devices, whatever it is that you're going to need. And first, I want to just explain, let me see. I have my notes down here so y'all know I always am looking down here to keep myself on track. But I have 4 different practices that I really want to introduce to you very, very briefly. And then we're going to go through them in a bit more detail. I'm going to give you some techniques and some benefits and purposes and all of that good stuff. The first one, though, is liminal dreaming. And you're going to see me pulling from this book by Jennifer Dupere, Liminal Dreaming, Exploring Consciousness at the Edges of Sleep. I'm also going to include the link to this book in the description box so that if you are interested, you can go ahead and check it out. But liminal dreaming, so liminal comes from the Latin word limen, meaning like a threshold. So this is a place in between places. So if you think about maybe like a doorway or a stairwell or a parking garage, these are examples of physical liminal spaces. And what we're talking about, the liminal state, is going to be this state of consciousness in between waking and dreaming, or waking and sleeping. So it's basically as you're falling asleep. This is called hypnagogia. When you're waking up, the state from waking or dreaming, the state from sleeping or dreaming into waking is called hypnopompia. And both of these are liminal states. You probably have heard of these if you are interested in like manifestation and law of attraction. A lot of people say like, okay, visualize or do your affirmations when you're going to bed or as you're falling asleep. And the reason they say this is because you're in the liminal state. And in this state, the ego is starting to break down. These narrative processes, the narratives and the storylines that the mind weaves are starting to break down. And you're entering this very symbolic state. A lot of the images and the dreams, if we will, that arise in the liminal state, they don't have narrative. So maybe it's just a face, maybe it's just an image, maybe it's a sound or like an auditory hallucination. It's great for creativity and problem solving. But the reason why people say to do your visualizations or your affirmations during this state is because the mind is very open during this transitional period. So it's a lot easier to implant impressions into the unconscious mind that with proper nurturing and with secondary conditions, secondary causes and conditions, will ripen and manifest into your waking experience. So it's the perfect place to like hijack the body, hijack the brain in order to do a lot of self-transformation work or manifestation. Once again, it's very useful for creativity. We're going to be talking about the Dolly Edison technique. Both Dolly and Edison both use the liminal state in order to come up with ideas for new projects and new artistic endeavors and inventions and creations. The scientist Kukule also discovered the model of the benzene molecule in the liminal state. I forget who it was, but the guy who created the periodic table of elements also came up with that structure in the liminal state. So if you're someone who's creative or you're trying to come up with new ideas for things, this is certainly a state of consciousness that you would want to explore and dive into, and it's very accessible. So if you are at this workshop because you're interested in lucid dreaming and dream work, but you find that it's difficult for you to remember your dreams or it's difficult for you to become lucid in your dreams, exploring the liminal state would be of benefit for you because it very much is giving alternate state of consciousness, but it's very easily accessible by anyone. It's a natural state. We all go through it. It's just about learning how to identify it and maintain consciousness in that state. The second technique that we're going to be talking about, our process that I want to review with you, is what I'm going to be calling horizontal meditations. A lot of people are very used to seeing or practicing meditation like in the sitting position, whether that be the cross-legged position or in a chair. Some people are advised not to lay down, or, you know, there are some teachers out there that are very against laying down and meditating. But meditating laying down is actually a very beneficial practice if you're someone who's practicing mindfulness meditation or shamatha meditation. If you follow Buddhism, you know, if it means anything to you at all. For some people it doesn't, and not saying that it has to or should, but just saying that if you follow Buddhist practices in order to fuel your meditation, the Buddha also talked about learning how to meditate in different positions. Horizontal meditations are very close to liminal dreaming, and the one that I'm going to be hopefully talking about this evening, if I have enough time, is called shamatha without a sign. It's actually the meditation. So typically when I talk about mindfulness meditation, I introduce you to the Theravada method, which is using the sensations of the breath at the apertures of the nostrils or the opening of the nostrils or above the upper lip, depending on where you feel that sensation the most. Different people have different physiologies. Their faces are shaped differently. Their skulls are shaped differently. But just focusing on this area and then using the sensations of the breath as a way to help you release and relax and enter the meditative state. There are different I don't want to call them styles, but I'll call them levels, different levels of meditation. A lot of people want to know, how do I get to that level of meditation where no thoughts arise in the mind at all? Or, people say clearing your mind. And I always advise people who I practice with and who I teach not to approach meditation, especially for beginners, with this intention of, oh, I want to clear my mind, because you're going to make yourself frustrated. There is a process that naturally goes on when you learn how to go from many thoughts to no thoughts. And there are different types of meditations that you learn along the way in order to make your mind do that. So typically here on Higher Alignment, when I talk about mindfulness meditation, I'm talking about these beginners practices that we're going to call mindfulness meditation with the sign, or shamatha with the sign. Sometimes you'll hear me refer to the object of attention. So we could call this mindfulness meditation with an object. So in the Theravada method that I just explained, the sensations of the breath are your object. But there are other types of objects like mantras or visualizations, or focusing on the breath in other places of the body, like the rising and falling of the stomach, or just the sensations of the breath throughout the body altogether. These are objects. So in this process, I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm gonna bring it back around and make it full circle. But in this process, you have objects, and then you also have more advanced meditative practices where you don't have an object. And that's where you're trying to work your way towards. So in this transitional period, which is very interesting because there is a place of mindfulness meditation with an object, mindfulness meditation without an object, and there are these meditations in between called observing the mind. And this is kind of getting you used to this place of learning how to meditate without a crutch, if you will, or without the object. And in these transitional liminal meditations, one of them is called observing the mind, or settling the mind. And this is very similar to liminal dreaming, because what you're doing is awareness itself, or the space of the mind, becomes the object of attention, and anything that arises within the space of the mind becomes the object of attention. So instead of, in the beginning for mindfulness meditation, maybe you'll consider like a thought about your to-do list or your dinner or this or that coming into your mind, and that becomes a distraction, and you're instructed to bring the attention back to the sensations of the breath at the nostrils, or back to the mantra, or back to the visualization. In these transitional meditations, those things are the object of attention. So you're allowing them to come up and arise within the space of the mind. You may observe them, but you don't attach onto them. So they come up, and without attachment, they self-liberate, they self-dissipate. So you'll start to see all kinds of thoughts and images, and just all kinds of phenomena will come into the mind. And then if you don't attach to them, they will leave. Now, this is very similar to liminal dreaming, because in liminal dreaming, you're laying down, you're focusing on just being aware as the body is falling asleep, and then all of the images that are coming into the mind, you're just allowing them to be there. You're just allowing them to come into the mind, and then once they leave, and you're just observing and being present. So these two processes are very, very similar. The third practice that I want to talk about is yoga nidra. You hear me talking about yoga nidra a lot, and yoga nidra is a very good way to learn to access the liminal state. So if you've been practicing yoga nidra with me in the Dark Art Self-Care series, which is my personal private self-care practice here on online, I'll include the link to it in the description box below. But we engage in tons of metaphysical practices for self-care like yoga nidra and mindfulness meditation. So if you have not practiced with me and are interested in doing that, make sure that you go ahead and join me. We practice between 2 and 4 times a month. I'll always have a schedule. Each session has its own theme. And it's a good way to not only, like here in the live workshops, I teach and you learn about these practices, but in the self-care practices, we actually engage in them. I don't really do any teaching. We actually do engaging in the practices. But yoga nidra, this is a meditative practice that hijacks the body's natural sleep system. So you see, we're still here in the domain of sleep and dream, just like in liminal dreaming. So in yoga nidra, you are learning to descend through the brainwave states consciously. You are learning to shut down different parts of your body. There are what are called sheaths or layers or levels. In Sanskrit, they're called the koshas. So the first kosha is the annamaya kosha, the food body or the physical body. You have the pranamaya kosha. I'm pretty sure you hear this word prana, meaning breath. So this is the energetic breath body. Manomaya kosha. Manas means mind. So this is your emotional mind. You have the Vijnana Maya kosha. Vijnana means wisdom. And this is the intuitive body. And then you have the Anandamaya kosha, which is the thinnest layer, the thinnest level of the body between you and the non-dual state. And this is called the bliss body. But you're learning how to consciously descend through the brainwave states, how to consciously shut down the body. So eventually you arrive at this state of body asleep, mind awake. So in body asleep, mind awake, as you can imagine, there are going to be all sorts of visions and even hallucinations and just all kinds of experiences that arise, not only when you get there, but before you get there. And during the process of yoga nidra, you're learning how to go through this meditative practice without falling asleep. You're relaxing, you're laying down, just like in liminal dreaming, just like in horizontal meditations, you're laying down as if you're going to go to sleep, but you're not completely losing consciousness. So you're trying to find this balance between waking and sleeping, how to sit right there in the middle. And that's exactly what we're talking about in liminal dreaming, the limen, the threshold, the hypnagogia, the hypnopompia, how to rest there right in the middle without being awake and without being asleep. You're neither awake nor asleep. You're right there in the middle in between. And then I have a note here. Let me go ahead. I have a note that I wrote. In the early 1960s, Swami Satyananda Saraswati, he modified the practice of yoga. Like I basically wanted to bring up yoga nidra. So yoga nidra originally, even though I called it an ancient practice, and you're going to hear it referred to as an ancient practice, Nyasa, Nyasa, is the original practice, and I believe this means to place or to put. And it was about like a type of deity worship practice where practitioners would place or put mantras on different parts of their body. So if you've practiced yoga nidra before, you'll know that there is a part of the process called the rotation of consciousness, where you're rotating consciousness from place to place in the body. This is a part of the practice pratyahara, meaning to withdraw the senses. The image that's often given is a turtle withdrawing its limbs into a shell. So you're learning to withdraw your attention and your focus from the external environment and turn inward. Very similar to lucid dreaming, very similar to the horizontal meditations and observing the mind. So in the beginning, there was only nyasa, and then there was dream yoga, which is another level of lucid dreaming. So once again, you may be at this workshop because you're interested in learning how to become lucid in your dreams. So when you start to use lucid dreaming for the purpose of spiritual development, and in the original practices and in these original contexts and for these cultures in a traditional sense, the practice of dream yoga or sleep yoga, the point is to achieve enlightenment. So you can see all of these practices overall. I've been giving it to you for about 20 minutes. I think a 20-minute rundown is pretty good, considering I can talk a lot. But in all of these practices, liminal dreaming, shamatha, the horizontal meditations, yoga nidra, you can very much see that there is an element, a reoccurring element of dream work, of alternate states of consciousness that runs through all of these practices, and they're all very similar. They're all in the same domain, the same world. So once again, you can use these practices for creativity and rejuvenation, and that's exactly what I want to talk to you about right now. But let me go ahead and put a note for myself because I want to put chapters in here. Creativity and rejuvenation. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna be pulling from some of these books that I have for you from some of these resources. Y'all know, if you've been here before, you're not new to this, you're true to this. I am very big on resources, as you can see from the library in the background. And I like to read from the original sources and the original text so that you can get my interpretation of it, but not only that, but you can actually hear what the person who came up with it, or the person who wrote about it said. And I think resources are important. So this is the book Liminal Dreaming by Jennifer Dupere. And I will put the link to this book in the description box. I have two sections that I wanted to read from. The first one is called What is Liminal Dreaming? And the edition I have, this is on page 9 at the bottom. There's a swirling, kaleidoscopic, free associative experience on the edge of your mind. You'll find it in the space right between awake and asleep, where your meandering consciousness mixes memory and thought with visionary imagery. I call this experience liminal dreaming. Liminal refers to the spaces in between things, the transitional condition of thresholds or boundaries. There are two dream states that together make up liminal dreaming: hypnagogia and hypnopompia. These constantly morphing states cling to the edges of sleep. You're probably familiar with both, but you may never have given them much thought. As you slip into sleep at night, or during naps, or fatigue delirium, you pass through hypnagogia. Coined in 1848 by Louis Ferdinand Alfred Maury, a French scholar and physician whose ideas about the interpretation of dreams influenced Freud, the word hypnagogia comes from the Greek hypnos, meaning sleep, and agogos, leading into, and conveys the means of leading into sleep. But you might first notice it when you are frightened to stay awake, in a darkened movie theater, in an overheard lecture hall, or alone on your couch late at night waiting up for someone to come home. You might experience hypnagogia as a kind of exhausted hallucination. As you slip into a nap, it might manifest in the form of vivid visions. When you drift off at night, perhaps you see eerie faces turning towards you, hear alien radio stations, or jolt out of the feeling of falling. When your arm or leg jerks involuntary, you know you're experiencing hypnagogia. So it's a very hallucinogenic state. Unlike the dreams that you experience in the REM state, there's not going to be a narrative or a theme running through them. It's just going to be, like she said, very kaleidoscopic, very hallucinogenic. You're going to just see visions and images that are arise and disappear. They come and go. And the reason that there is no really narrative is because the you that you think of as you is also beginning to dissolve itself and fall apart. So many people think about ego death. It's a type of natural ego death that you go through every night. So the ego is going to slowly begin to shut down. And as you Explore the practices of yoga nidra, of liminal dreaming, of horizontal meditations. You're actually learning how to be conscious during that dissolution process. But this state is very great to receive messages from the divine, once again, for creativity, for problem solving, just because it's very free associative, and it's like the ego steps out of the way. The ego is stepping out of the way, and you're having direct contact with these other parts of the psyche, other parts of the mind that you otherwise wouldn't get a chance to experience consciously. So I wanted to show you two techniques, and let me pull one of them from Jennifer Duperre's book. The first one is called feedback loop, and it's one that I've been exploring, and I love to use this, and it's useful for many different things. For learning hypnagogia, also if you're interested in lucid dreaming, the wild technique, wake-induced lucid dreaming, basically starts out like this. So if you're trying to learn how to lucid dream and you know about the wild technique and you've always wanted to experience that, wilding is one of my personal favorite ways to have a lucid dream. It's just the experience of consciously watching yourself from the waking state to the dreaming state fall into a dream, completely lucid and aware without losing consciousness is a task, but it's a beautiful and wonderful experience. So if you're working your way towards that, I would definitely explore getting proficient at liminal dreaming and yoga nidra. But let's listen to what Jennifer has to say and talk about this. And this is on page 21. Feedback loop for hypnagogia. This exercise is about surfing the edge of consciousness, moving back and forth between thought and dream. 1. Lie or sit back and relax your body and mind as much as possible. 2. With your eyes closed, let your mind drift, but don't fall asleep. You're waiting for something, an image, an idea, a hazy memory, perhaps a distant sound. You might imagine it as much as see, hear, or feel it. Allow your waking, rational mind to loosen its hold on your experience. Open yourself to whatever arises. 3. Eventually something will appear. It might just be a little visual glimmer or a drifty thought. Maybe it's a slight tone or distant voices or an unfamiliar emotion. Whatever it is, once it's in your mind, breathe slowly and softly into it, allowing it to take shape, to move, and to shift on its own. Use your exhale to relax your body even further. As you breathe out, imagine you're animating whatever it is that you're perceiving, like watering a plant with your attention. The exhale removes tension and energy from your mind and body and transfers it to the hypnagogic dream that's taking shape. 5. If you start to fully fall asleep, sharpen your consciousness. The trick is to only do so slightly so you don't wake up completely. Try paying a little more attention to the act of paying attention. And then 6, as you breathe your energy into the dream, hypnagogia will become easier to perceive, especially at first. Your hypnagogic dream may simply be moving points of light or color, faces turning towards you, or flashes of thought that shift into a dream. The phenomena may also end quickly, but over time, this exercise will help you enter into hypnagogia more easily and stay there for long periods of time. So let's recap. What you're going to do is lay down as if you're going to go to sleep, okay? You're going to get very relaxed. And once again, if you've practiced yoga nidra with me, or if you've practiced yoga nidra, then you could do some breath work techniques. You could literally do a quick rotation of consciousness if you have memorized those points in that practice. Then you can go ahead and do whatever type of rotation of consciousness you would like, and you're just relaxing your body. What I like to do is then kind of shift the focus of my awareness to my mind and kind of to the space in between the eyebrow points, the third eye chakra. And then right there, you're going to be looking as if you're perceiving into or perceiving through. Even though it's black, try to avoid looking at it as if it's 2D and like you're looking at blackness. Think about it as a space of pure potentiality, and you are perceiving into it, and you want to hold your vision like straight. You want to hold your gaze straight and relaxed. And then you'll start to see colors and swirls and shapes and just flashes of light. Sometimes you may be thinking, am I seeing something? Am I feeling something? Am I thinking something? But the moment that something comes up, whatever it is, just note it. And then what you're going to do is use your breath and breathe into it. So as you exhale, you are relaxing your body, relaxing your mind, and you are feeding that image. Maybe it's a, like, say it's a yellow speck. As you exhale, imagine that yellow speck growing, like you're feeding that yellow speck with the breath, and you're allowing it to naturally do whatever it's going to do. Maybe it may morph, maybe it may change, and then it may disappear and something else altogether may arise. You know, you may start hearing sounds or voices, and that may disappear, and then something else may arise. It may be a vision or a face, and then that may disappear, and there may be multiple things that arise at one time. So once again, as you can see, it's very kaleidoscopic, it's very hallucinogenic. But once you get proficient in it, you can kind of give yourself a prompt or an idea or something that you want to think about or consider before and as you're going in, and then see what arises, okay? The second technique that is going to kind of bridge upon this, we're going to call the Salvador Dali, or the Dali Salvador. The Dali Edison, or the Edison Dali technique, and you may look it up online and hear it referred to in one of those. But basically, both gentlemen came up with the same technique independently, but they would relax and kind of do what we just talked about in a chair. And they would have a plate up underneath the chair on both sides, kind of just underneath the arm part. And in their hand, they would either have a ball or some keys, or you can have a handful of marbles. And you're going to let yourself kind of drift off into this very relaxed, kind of napping type state. But you're not going to fall asleep. Once again, you're trying to surf the edges of consciousness. You're trying to surf that liminal state. And then if you fall too far asleep, your hand will drop, the objects in your hand will fall onto the plate and wake you up. And then what it is you want to go ahead and write down or draw, or, go ahead and take note. Maybe you have a voice recorder and you want to talk into it, whatever it is that you were perceiving or whatever it is that came up. And so these different ideas, these different images, these different hallucinations, if you will, that will enter the mind can be developed into those creative ideas. You may be, once again, having something that's on your mind, a problem that you want to solve, something that you want to come up with, a new creative project, a new business adventure. Maybe you want to develop a new goal, whatever it is. Maybe you're having issues achieving a certain goal. Maybe you're encountering some obstacles or some challenges, and you want to figure out what's another way to approach this that I have not thought about. You can think about that a little bit before you do it, like as you're in the chair. Think about that, set your intention, and then go into the liminal state and do this Dali Edison technique and see what comes up for you. Do it over a number of days. If you start to practice the original hypnagogia technique by Jennifer Dupere, the feedback loop, once again, see what comes up for you. If you're someone who particularly does like yoga nidra, you can find a yoga nidra guided meditation that will help you with, focusing in on creativity or problem solving or money or obstacles and challenges or business or relationships or whatever it is that you want. And if you become proficient, then you can learn to use that yoga nidra to enter the liminal state, and when whatever comes up for you that is of relevance, that comes up, you have that vision, you get that message, and it seems to come to you from the great beyond, whatever it is that you want to call it, go ahead and write that down. And then those will be ideas, those will be the things that you will continue to explore in the future. Okay? So hopefully, I know I've been talking about a lot. Let me look back over here because I haven't even looked at the chat one time. Is everybody picking up what I'm putting down? Is everything making sense? Let me know. Let me see. My friend put me onto this Olipop. I'm having the strawberry vanilla one. It's my dog. His name is Monster Bear. And actually, today is the 14th, and it's actually Monster Bear's birthday. So if you're watching this video and you've made it this far, Monster, go ahead and drop a happy birthday, Monster, in the comment section below. And I'm going to give him all of the birthday wishes that come through. So I didn't see any questions. Let me come back over here. So I want to talk about, that was liminal dreaming, techniques for creativity and problem solving. What I want to do is talk about rejuvenation. So let me write down rejuvenation. So I want to talk to you about techniques for rejuvenation and liminal dreaming and how you're going to go about this. So let's go back to Yoga Nidra. The Yoga Nidra book that I want to bring up is called Radiant Rest by Tracy Stanley, and you should get this. She is a black woman, and you don't often see black people in this space, and you don't often see women in this space either. So I think we should definitely support her and go ahead and get her book. I actually got this book when it first came out. I pre-ordered it, and she has a new book. I don't remember what it's called. I remember the cover is gold. So if you like this one, if you already have this one, go ahead and grab that one. If you don't have either of them, grab both. But I want to talk about Yoga Nidra, and I've kind of talked about it already, so I want to skip around. One thing, I want to read a little bit from her, like, introduction. I love reading the introductions of books. I know a lot of people skip it, but you get a lot of gems in the introduction. This is on page 2. A growing number of important and powerful voices are urging people to rest, to do less, to move away from the toxic culture of grinding it out and crushing it. Rest is vital to thriving. We have gotten the message that we need to actively make time for rest, to take up space, and to clear and protect space for those who have been denied the ability to rest safely. When we practice Yoga Nidra, we not only experience the power of deep rest and relaxation, but we get to wake up to our essential nature, one that is filled with radiance and bliss. This awakening has lasting and transformative effects on every aspect of our lives. Deep rest is just one of the gifts we receive from the practice of Yoga Nidra. I love what she says right here, because if you're into self-care and personal development, a lot of us have been conditioned and trained, and even I do this myself, to think that the way that we accomplish our goals, or the way that we transform our life, or the way that we make it from point A to point B is by this intense hard work, grinding it out and crushing it, as she says. This could not be further from the truth. One thing that one of my friends told me a while ago that I always remember in my mind is rest and let God do the rest. That sticks out to me, and that's a message that I think a lot of people have been receiving, not just right now, but over the past few years, and maybe I'm just now catching up when I got the information about Yoga Nidra a few years ago. But there are definitely alternative ways to accomplish a goal. Not saying that you shouldn't be working or you're not going to have to take any action, but going so hard that you overwork and overwhelm and stress yourself out and burn yourself out is not the way to achieve a goal, because you interrupt you end up entering into this state of complete imbalance. And then when your nervous system is imbalanced, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system are imbalanced, then you have created an internal obstacle that is now going to stop you from achieving externally what it is that you originally set out to do. It's important in goal achievement and self-transformation and making those big moves in life and making those transitions, whatever it is that you're doing, leveling up, that you have discernment. It's important to know when it's time to go and to go when it's time to go. And when it's time to rest, it's time to rest, and it's time to rest with intention. How can you rest with intention? By engaging in the practice of yoga nidra. And one thing that I really like that she said here is to clear and protect space for those who have been denied the ability to rest safely. She does, let me see if I can find it. Because she talks about people of color and queer people, and I just love that she wrote what she wrote in here. And if I can find it, I want to read it from what she says, but maybe I won't be able to find it. Let me see. I should have marked it out before. Give me just a second. If I can't find it, then if I can't find it in like 60 seconds, then I will move on and I will summarize it for you. But I was just trying to see if I can find it in her words. I can't find it, but what I love is that basically from even the quote that I already read for you, those who have been denied the ability to rest safely. And I think that this is important, especially for indigenous people, for people of color, for queer people, is because our bodies have been sexualized, our bodies have been abused, our bodies have been used as, trade and manual labor and as a resource for so long that is embedded in our epigenetics. That trauma is passed down from generation to generation, and you see it in the behavior in people who are indigenous, people who are of color, people who are queer, people who are in the minority. And then when you go out and you are amongst the majority and you are ostracized and you are the other, on a deep biological and psychological level, it makes you feel unsafe. It prevents you from being able to relax completely in public, or to let your guard down, or to do something like practice yoga nidra, where you are literally altering the state of your consciousness and you are learning to rest and let your body go into this state of body asleep, mind awake. Say you want to do that. Like I try to once a year go on vacation and go on a retreat with myself and to do yoga nidra in nature, do these nature practices. So in the mountains, on the beach, in the forest, in these very natural environments. And in the beginning, you do get this sense of, wow, I am literally going to be laying down on the ground in the middle of wherever, learning how to relax on such a level that I could almost fall asleep. And I think that for many Black people, for many indigenous people, for many queer people, having had the way that your body is being objectified, ingrained in you for so long, and that being passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation and arriving at you, this really is a transformational process. And I also think that it is a process that is very important to honor your ancestors. You get to rest for all of the times that they were never able to rest. You get to engage in these practices that will extend in the future, that even do extend into the past, and transform your present moment as well. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about are the horizontal meditations. And I kind of already talked about that, but I do want to present the resource for you. I'm not going to have time to read the quote because it's quite long, but I will tell you where it is. The book is called The Attention Revolution, Unlocking the Power of the Focused Mind by B. Alan Wallace. And so I give this resource often, especially when I'm teaching mindfulness meditation. I like to teach from this book. I think, once again, it is gold standard. If you're someone who is really trying to learn how to meditate and clear your mind, if you will, this book will be that resource for you. It explains the 10, there are different frameworks, okay? There are tons of different frameworks, and this is not the only model. There are many models. But I think that this one is very detailed and nuanced. And I wish I could remember what yogi or what sage came up with it, but it's called the 10 stages of shamatha. And it basically walks you through these 10 broken down stages of a mind, going from a very chaotic mind into a mind that has no thoughts that arise. A mind where awareness ends up resting in itself. And the metaphor that is used throughout the text and throughout this framework is of water. So at first it's like the mind is like a waterfall, a fast moving waterfall where all of the thoughts are just coming. And slowly the waterfall slows down. Then it transitions into like a metaphor of the mind being like a fast moving river through a gorge. And then that river begins to slow down, and then it turns into like a slow river. And then little by little, this body of water becomes more and more still. And then when you are at the point of the mind being like an ocean unmoved by waves, or a lake, a waveless lake, like a still lake, you notice in these types of bodies of water, you can see through it and perceive all the way down to the bottom, versus that turbulent water, that moving water, you're caught up and swept up in the emotions and the motions and the thoughts. So you don't actually see the mind. You're just paying attention to the thoughts. But I was talking to you about horizontal meditations and the one of observing the mind, or the practice of settling the mind in its natural state. And I kind of explained that to you already. In the beginning, you have meditations, shamatha with the sign, or mindfulness meditation with an object. And you're learning to use an object to basically anchor the focus of awareness. But after a while, this object becomes a crutch. And so you open up and the mind itself becomes the object. The mind and anything that arises within the mind. So at this point, you're no longer trying to push thoughts away. You're just open to welcoming them. Whatever arises, you're open to it, and you don't grasp onto it. And once again, this is very similar, bringing it back around to liminal dreaming, because when you're practicing liminal dreaming, just like Jennifer Dupere explained, it's this kaleidoscopic experience where visions and hallucinations, whether visual or auditory, come, like things are constantly coming and going. You're observing the mind. You're observing the space of the mind and whatever arises within it. Just like in settling the mind in its natural state, that mindfulness meditation technique, the object of attention is the mind and whatever arises within it. So you can see these two techniques, these two practices are very similar to each other, if not probably really the same thing, just done with a different intention and with, some different sauce, some different flavor. But you should definitely explore these practices. I gave you the resources. We're coming up on the end. So just to review, you have Liminal Dreaming by Jennifer Dupere, Radiant Rest by Tracy Stanley, and The Attention Revolution by B. Alan Wallace. We covered a variety of different techniques and purposes and uses for liminal dreaming. If you do want to dive in deeper with me, I would highly suggest that you come on and check out the Dark Art Self-Care series. It is the perfect way to not only learn about these practices, but to actually engage with them on a consistent basis so that you're getting those benefits. If you are not consistently engaging with those practices, you're not going to be able to become proficient. You're not going to be able to get into these states of consciousness and actually maintain awareness there, and you're not going to get those benefits. So, don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. I'm going to include all of the resources that I've mentioned in this live workshop in the description box. Ooh, sorry, y'all. In the description box below. So go ahead and check it out. While you're down there, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to send me a DM on Instagram or drop those comments right below. I read each and every comment and I always respond, okay? So I hope that you all learned a lot about liminal dreaming and a lot of these different meditative practices and how to use them for creativity and restoration. I will see you all back here next Thursday for the next workshop. Have a good one.